is a season in your life that nobody talks about enough. The season when you have prayed, believed, waited, and still cannot see what God is doing. You have asked for the door to open, but it remains closed. You have asked for an answer, but heaven seems silent. You have asked God to show you the plan, yet all you can see is uncertainty. And perhaps the hardest question is not, when will it happen, but is God doing anything at all? If you are in a waiting season right now, I want you to hear this clearly. Your waiting does not mean God has forgotten you. Your silence does not mean God has abandoned you. And your delay does not mean your purpose has been cancelled. There are things God can be doing in your life that your eyes cannot yet see. A seed can be buried and still be alive. A foundation can be hidden and still be carrying the weight of something greater. Roots can grow in darkness long before anyone sees the tree. And sometimes your life is like that seed. You are looking at the darkness and calling it delay, while God is calling it preparations. Maybe you have been asking God to change your circumstances, but He has been changing you. Maybe you have been asking for the promise, but God has been preparing your character to carry it. Maybe you have been asking for the next door, but God has been teaching you how to walk through the door without losing yourself. And today, I want you to stop looking at your waiting season as wasted time. Because what if the season you are trying desperately to escape is the very season God is using to prepare you for the life you have been praying for? Stay with this message until the very end, because we are going to uncover how to recognize God's hidden work when you cannot see the evidence, how to understand what your waiting season may be developing inside you, and how to keep moving when your faith is being tested by silence. Do not rush away from this moment. Take a breath. Get the noise. Open your heart and ask God one powerful question. Lord, what are you preparing in me while I am waiting? Because sometimes the greatest revelation is not discovering when the promise will arrive. It is discovering who you are becoming before it arrives. Your story is not over because the answer has not appeared. The door is not permanently closed because it has not opened yet. And your purpose has not disappeared simply because you cannot see it. God is still working. So listen carefully, because by the end of this message, you may look at your waiting season differently, not as a punishment, not as abandonment, and not as wasted time, but as a divine preparation for something you are not yet ready to see. There are seasons in life when God seems silent, the answers seem delayed, the doors you expected to open remain closed, and the future appears hidden behind a curtain you cannot pull back. In those moments, one of the greatest temptations is to assume that nothing is happening. But what you cannot see is not the same as what God is not doing. There is a difference between God's silence and God's absence. There is a difference between a hidden plan and a non-existent plan. Just because you cannot see the hand of God does not mean His hand has stopped moving. Some of the most important work God does in a person's life happens beneath the surface, where human eyes cannot observe it. A seed buried in the ground looks forgotten, but beneath the soil something is happening. Roots are forming. Life is developing. The seed is not being punished by the darkness. It is being prepared for manifestation. Your waiting season can be like that. You may feel buried, overlooked, delayed, or forgotten, but God may be developing something in you that could not be developed in a season of immediate answers. Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God." Notice the strength of that statement. We know. It does not say we guess. It does not say we hope that perhaps something good might happen. It says we know. This confidence is not based on our ability to understand every circumstance. It is based on our knowledge of God's character. God can take things you would never have chosen and weave them into a purpose you could never have designed. He can use the delay. He can use the disappointment. He can use the closed door. He can use the season of uncertainty. He can even use the mistakes you made to teach you wisdom for the future. This does not mean every event is good in itself. It means God is powerful enough to work through every circumstance toward His purposes. That distinction is important. Sometimes you look at your present situation and say, I cannot see anything good in this. But God is not limited by what you can see. Your perspective is immediate. His perspective is eternal. You see one chapter. He sees the entire story. You see the delay. He sees the preparation. You see the closed door. He sees what that door was protecting you from. You see the empty space. He sees what He is preparing to fill it with. You see nothing happening. He may be doing some of His deepest work. Think about how often God worked behind the scenes in Scripture. Joseph could not see the purpose of his pit when he was thrown into it. He could not understand the prison while he was sitting behind its walls. Yet what looked like a series of disasters was becoming part of a larger journey toward leadership. David was anointed before he was established. Moses spent years in the wilderness before stepping into his assignment. Even Jesus spent years in hidden preparation before his public ministry began. The hidden years were not wasted years. They were formative years. The same principle can apply to your life. You may be asking God, why am I still waiting? While God may be asking you, what am I developing in you while you wait? That question can transform your entire perspective. Waiting becomes less about the absence of movement and more about the presence of preparation. God is not merely interested in giving you what you want. He is interested in preparing you to handle what he has for you. Because receiving a blessing before you have the character to manage it can become a burden. Receiving an opportunity before you have the wisdom to steward, it can destroy what you prayed for. Sometimes the delay is mercy. Sometimes the waiting is protection. Sometimes God is strengthening your roots before increasing your reach. You may be praying for a larger platform while God is developing a stronger character. You may be praying for greater influence while God is teaching you humility. You may be asking for the next door while God is teaching you how to faithfully manage the room you are already in. Never despise a season simply because it is not producing visible results yet. Some of the greatest transformations begin invisibly. A tree does not become strong because its branches grow quickly. It becomes strong because its roots go deep. Your waiting season may be forcing your roots deeper into God. It may be teaching you to pray without immediate answers, to trust without visible evidence, to remain faithful without applause, and to continue obeying when nobody is celebrating your obedience. That kind of faith is powerful because it is no longer dependent upon circumstances. Anyone can praise God when everything is working. Mature faith praises him when the answer is still delayed. Anyone can trust when the path is obvious. Mature faith trusts when the path is hidden. Anyone can be grateful when the blessing arrives. Mature faith learns gratitude while still waiting. This is where your waiting season becomes sacred. It becomes a classroom where God teaches you lessons that comfort alone could never teach. You learn patience. You learn discernment. You learn dependence. You learn that God's timing is not careless. You learn that silence does not mean abandonment. You learn that a closed door does not necessarily mean rejection. You learn that your identity cannot depend on how quickly your prayers are answered. And perhaps most importantly, you learn to desire the presence of God more than the presence of God. That is a profound transformation. Instead of saying, God, give me what I want so I can be happy, you begin saying, God, make me who you want me to become, even if the process takes longer than I expected. That is where spiritual maturity begins. Your waiting season can also expose what has been controlling your heart. If your peace disappears every time God delays something, perhaps your peace was attached to the outcome rather than the one who gives it. If your faith collapses because a door remains closed, perhaps you are trusting the door more than the God who opens doors. If your joy depends entirely on receiving what you requested, perhaps God is inviting you into a deeper kind of joy that is rooted in his presence. This is not easy, but it is valuable. God sometimes allows the waiting because he wants to move your confidence from circumstances to character. He wants you to know him, not merely know what he can give you. So when you cannot see the plan, do not assume there is no plan. When you cannot hear an answer, do not assume God has stopped listening. When the process feels slow, do not conclude that your purpose has been forgotten. Keep walking, keep praying, keep learning, keep obeying, keep preparing. Keep your heart open to what God may be doing beneath the surface. Your assignment during the waiting season is not to force the future into existence. Your assignment is to become ready for what God is preparing. You may not understand why the timing is different from what you expected, but you can trust the one who controls the timing. You may not understand why certain relationships ended, why certain opportunities disappeared, or why certain prayers have remained unanswered, but you can refuse to let uncertainty destroy your faith. There are things you will understand later that you cannot understand now. There are seasons when you wonder why God has allowed you to wait, why the door has not opened, why the opportunity has not arrived, and why your prayers seem to be moving through silence. But sometimes the waiting season is not merely a pause before your purpose. It is the place where your purpose begins to become clear. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end." God knows the end, even when you cannot see the beginning clearly. He knows the purpose behind the process, even when the process feels confusing. You may be focused on what you have not received, while God may be focused on what you are becoming. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Sometimes God uses the waiting season to separate your desires from your destiny. You may want something badly, But wanting something does not automatically mean it is your purpose. You may have created a plan for your life, but God's purpose is greater than your personal plan. The waiting season gives you time to discover whether you are chasing something because God placed it in your heart, or because comparison pressure, fear, or ambition placed it there. When everything moves quickly, you can confuse activity with purpose. But when God slows the process, you are forced to examine your heart. You begin asking deeper questions. Why do I want this? Who am I becoming? What has God placed inside me? What am I supposed to prepare for? What kind of person must I become to fulfill the assignment God has given me? Those questions are powerful because purpose is not simply about what you will accomplish. It is about who you are designed to become and how your life will serve something greater than yourself. Your waiting season can reveal gifts you did not know you possessed. It can expose strengths that only difficulty could develop. It can teach you compassion because you experienced disappointment. It can teach you courage because you had to move forward without certainty. It can teach you wisdom because you made mistakes and learned from them. It can teach you patience because you discovered that God's timing cannot be manipulated. What feels like a delay may therefore be developing the very qualities your future assignment will require. Look at Joseph. His journey did not move directly from dream to fulfillment. There were seasons of rejection, slavery, false accusation, and imprisonment. Yet each difficult environment developed something in him. He learned responsibility in Potiphar's house. He learned endurance in prison. He learned leadership before he ever stood in a position of national influence. The process was preparing him for the purpose. The same principle applies to your life. You may be asking God to change your environment when He is using that environment to develop your capacity. You may be praying for a larger assignment while God is teaching you faithfulness in a smaller one. Do not despise the small place. Do not despise the quiet season. Do not despise the ordinary responsibilities that seem unrelated to your future. Great purpose is often built through small acts of obedience. David learned to protect sheep before he was entrusted with a nation. The hidden field became preparation for the public battlefield. What you do when nobody is watching may be preparing you for what everyone will eventually see. This is why your waiting seasons matters. It gives you an opportunity to develop privately before you are tested publicly. Many people want public success without private preparation. They want the platform without the character. They want influence without discipline. They want recognition without responsibility. But God is more interested in building something inside you that can survive the weight of what you are asking Him to place outside you. Your purpose is not merely a destination. It is a responsibility, and responsibility requires preparation. Sometimes the waiting season reveals purpose by removing distractions. When certain relationships end, when certain opportunities disappear, or when certain plans fail, you may initially feel as though your life is falling apart. But sometimes God is clearing space for something more aligned with His purpose. Not every loss is punishment. Not every closed door is failure. Not every ending is destruction. Some endings are redirections. Some removals are protections. Some disappointments are divine interruptions. You may not understand them immediately, but later you may realize that what you were begging God to preserve was actually something He was trying to release you from. This is why you must be careful about defining God's goodness by whether He gives you exactly what you request. God loves you too much to answer every prayer according to your limited perspective. Sometimes His no protects your yes. Sometimes His wait prepares you for go. Sometimes His redirection moves you toward a purpose you would never have chosen on your own. Your task is to remain open to His direction. Do not become so attached to your preferred outcome that you miss God's better assignment. During the waiting season, pay attention to what consistently burdens your heart in a good way. Notice the problems you feel compelled to solve, the people you naturally want to help, the subjects that awaken your passion, and the abilities that continue to develop through your experiences. Purpose often leaves clues, but do not confuse passion with purpose without discipline. Passion can tell you where to look. Character determines whether you can remain faithful there. That is why preparation must accompany discovery. If you believe God is leading you towards something, prepare yourself for it. Learn, grow, serve, practice, build discipline. Strengthen your faith, develop your skills. The waiting season is not an excuse to sit still. It is an invitation to prepare intentionally. You do not need to know the entire plan before you begin preparing. You only need to recognize what God has already placed in your hands. Use what you have. Develop what you can. Be faithful where you are. Sometimes purpose becomes clearer through obedience. You take one step and the next step becomes visible. You serve one person and another opportunity appears. You develop one skill and suddenly you realize why God allowed you to learn it. The pieces begin connecting over time. That is why you cannot abandon the process simply because you cannot yet see the picture. A puzzle piece looks meaningless when you hold it alone, but when the entire picture comes together, you understand where it belonged. Your present season may be one piece of a much larger purpose. Do not throw it away because it does not make sense by itself. Trust God with the process. Jeremiah 29-11 reminds you that God knows the thoughts He has toward you. His purpose is not random. Your life is not an accident. Your waiting season is not necessarily empty. There can be purpose hidden inside the pause. So instead of constantly asking, when will this season end? What is this season teaching me? Instead of asking only, when will God give me what I want, ask, what does God want to develop in me? Instead of focusing entirely on the next door, focus on becoming ready for the next assignment. The waiting season may be revealing your purpose by revealing you. It is showing you what you value, what you fear, what you need to surrender, what you need to develop, and what God may be calling you toward. And when the season finally changes, you may discover that God was not wasting your time. He was preparing your life to carry meaning. He was shaping your character to match your calling. He was teaching you to recognize His voice before giving you a larger platform. Therefore, do not run from the waiting. Do not curse the silence. Do not assume that because the door has not opened, nothing is happening. Your purpose may be taking shape in the very place you wanted to escape. Stay faithful, stay teachable, stay prepared, stay close to God. The waiting season may not be the end of your story. It may be the place where you finally discover why you were created to begin with. There is a dangerous moment in every waiting season when the promise seems so far away that quitting begins to look easier than continuing. You prayed, you worked, you believed, you prepared, and yet the result has not appeared. The temptation is to conclude that because you cannot see the harvest, there must be no seed. But Galatians 6-9 gives a powerful command. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Notice those final words, if we faint not. The promise is connected to perseverance. There are things God has placed on your path that will require you to keep walking long after your emotions have told you to stop. The greatest danger in a waiting season is not always the delay itself. It is allowing the delay to convince you to abandon the process. You may be closer than you think, but if you quit too early, you may never see what your obedience was producing. A farmer does not plant a seed today and dig it up tomorrow because nothing is visible. He understands that growth has a process. He waters the soil. He protects the seed. He waits for the right season. He trusts the principles that govern the harvest. Your life also has seasons. There is a time to plant, a time to water, a time to grow, and a time to harvest. You cannot demand harvest while refusing the process that produces it. This is where many people become frustrated. They want the promise, but they do not want the preparation. They want the result, but they do not want the repetition. They want the breakthrough, but they do not want the discipline that prepares them to sustain it. Yet God is not only interested in giving you something, He is interested in developing your capacity to carry it. If the promise arrives before your character is ready, what should have been a blessing can become a burden. Therefore, do not interpret the process as punishment. The process is often where your strength is being built. Every difficult day you survive with faith is developing endurance. Every time you choose obedience over convenience, your character becomes stronger. Every time you continue praying without immediate evidence, your faith becomes deeper. Every time you refuse to return to an old pattern, you are proving that transformation is taking place. You may not see the results yet, but that does not mean your obedience is producing nothing. Some of the most important growth happens underground. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations are built beneath the surface. Character develops in private. Before the world sees the fruit, God develops the roots. This is why you must stop measuring progress only by visible results. Sometimes progress is the fact that you did not quit. Sometimes progress is the fact that you responded differently than you used to. Sometimes progress is the fact that you kept your faith when circumstances gave you every reason to become bitter. Sometimes progress is simply that you got back up again. Do not underestimate the power of continuing. There is strength in showing up again. There is power in praying again. There is courage in trying again. There is faith in believing again. The enemy of your purpose may not always be failure. Sometimes it is exhaustion. Weariness whispers, it is never going to happen. Weariness says, why keep trying? Weariness tells you to abandon what God told you to build because the results are taking too long. But you must learn to distinguish between a genuine change of direction and temporary exhaustion. Sometimes you do not need a new assignment. You need renewed strength for the assignment you already have. That is why you must return to God when you are tired. Do not make permanent decisions from temporary exhaustion. Do not destroy your future because you are frustrated with your present. Rest, pray, seek wisdom, and regain perspective before you walk away from something God has asked you to continue. There will be moments when the process feels repetitive. You may feel as though you are doing the same thing without progress, but repetition can build mastery. Faithfulness in ordinary moments creates the foundation for extraordinary responsibility. David did not become a warrior in one day. He developed courage through repeated encounters with difficulty. The hidden battles prepared him for the public battle. Your current challenges may be training you for something you cannot yet see. The discipline you are developing today may become the strength you need tomorrow. The patience you are learning today may become essential when you are entrusted with greater responsibility. The wisdom you gain from today's disappointment may protect you from tomorrow's mistake. Nothing surrendered to God is wasted. Nothing learned through obedience is meaningless. Nothing endured with faith is forgotten by God. So keep going. If God has given you an assignment, be faithful to it. If He has given you a dream, prepare for it. If He has placed a burden for something good within your heart, develop it with wisdom and patience. But remember that perseverance does not mean blindly forcing something God has clearly closed. Perseverance means remaining faithful to God's direction, even when the process becomes difficult. There is a difference between persistence and stubbornness. Persistence follows God's direction. Stubbornness insists on its own direction. You must remain sensitive to God while remaining committed to obedience. Sometimes the next faithful step is to continue. Sometimes it is to adjust. Sometimes it is to wait. Sometimes it is to begin again. But whatever God is genuinely leading you to do not abandon it simply because it has become difficult. Difficulty is not always evidence that you are on the wrong path. Sometimes difficulty is part of the path that develops you. Jesus never promised that following God would remove every challenge, but He promised His presence, and God's presence changes how you walk through difficulty. You are not persevering because you believe you are strong enough by yourself. You are persevering because you believe God is faithful enough to sustain you. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel weak. There will be mornings when faith feels easy and nights when doubt becomes loud. Keep going anyway. Faith is not measured only by how you feel. It is demonstrated by what you choose when your feelings are uncertain. You may not know when the harvest will come, but you can remain faithful while you wait. You may not know how the promise will unfold, but you can prepare while you wait. You may not understand the entire process, but you can trust the one who does. Galatians does not say that you will reap immediately. It says you will reap in due season. That means timing matters. There is a season appointed for the harvest, and your responsibility is not to force the season, but to remain faithful until it arrives. Do not dig up the seed because you are impatient. Do not abandon the field because someone else's harvest came first. Do not compare your chapter with another person's chapter. Your season is your season. Keep planting, keep watering, keep praying, keep learning, keep obeying, keep becoming. And when the harvest finally appears, you will understand why God required perseverance. You will realize that the waiting was building your strength. The process was developing your character, and the delay was teaching you how to value what you were eventually going to receive. So today, if you are tired, breathe, but do not quit. If you are disappointed, cry, but do not abandon your faith. If you are uncertain, seek God, but do not surrender to fear. If the process is difficult, ask for wisdom, but keep your heart open to God's direction. Do not walk away from the process simply because you cannot see the promise yet. The seed does not need to be visible to be alive. The roots do not need applause to grow, and your obedience does not need immediate results to have meaning. Keep doing what is right. Keep trusting God. Keep moving with wisdom, because in due season the harvest will come, and when it does, you will know that the season you almost gave up on was the very season God was using to prepare you for what you had been praying for. As we come to the end of this message, I want you to stop for a moment and look at your waiting season through different eyes. Perhaps you entered this message believing that waiting meant something was wrong. Maybe you thought the closed door meant rejection, the silence meant abandonment, or the delay meant that God had forgotten the promise. But now you have heard a different truth. What you cannot see does not mean God is not working. There are seasons when heaven appears quiet, but God is moving beneath the surface. There are moments when nothing seems to change around you, yet everything is changing within you. Your waiting season may not be empty. It may be full of preparation, growth, correction, protection, and divine development. Romans 8:28 reminds us that God can work all things together for good. That means even the moments you would never have chosen can become part of a story you could never have written yourself. The disappointment can teach you. The delay can strengthen you. The closed door can protect you. The unanswered question can deepen you. The season that made you cry can become the season that made you strong. Do not allow your present circumstances to convince you that God has abandoned your future. Remember the first truth. God is working even when you cannot see the plan. Your limited vision cannot measure God's activity. You see what is happening today. God sees what your obedience is preparing for tomorrow. You see the delay. He sees the development. You see the wilderness. He sees the character being formed in you. You see the closed door. He sees the destination that door was preventing you from reaching. Therefore, do not judge God's work simply because you cannot see immediate evidence. A seed is not dead because it is buried. It is being prepared to break through the soil. Your hidden season may be doing the same thing inside you. Then remember, waiting is preparation, not punishment. Isaiah 40:31 declares that those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. God can use the waiting room to develop the strength you will need in the next room. You may be asking for greater responsibility while God is teaching you faithfulness. You may be asking for influence while He is developing your character. You may be asking for the opportunity while He is preparing your capacity. Do not despise preparation simply because it is not visible. The foundation of a building is hidden, but the entire structure depends upon it. Your character is your foundation. God may be strengthening what nobody can see because He knows what everyone will eventually see. We also discovered that God uses silence to develop faith and character. Silence is uncomfortable because it removes your dependence on visible evidence. It forces you to decide whether you trust God's character or merely trust God's activity. Anyone can believe when the miracle is standing in front of them. Mature faith believes while the miracle is still hidden. When God seems silent, keep praying, keep learning, keep obeying. Keep your heart open. Do not allow silence to become an excuse for unbelief. Sometimes God is teaching you to stand on His word, even when your emotions are demanding immediate proof. Then we learn to trust God's timing when we cannot understand His direction. Proverbs 3:5-6 tells us to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and not lean upon our own understanding. You may not understand the timing, but you can trust the wisdom behind it. You may not understand the route, but you can trust the guide. Stop demanding the entire map before you take the next step. God does not have to explain everything before you obey Him. Sometimes faith means moving forward with unanswered questions because you know the one who holds the answers. Your waiting season can also reveal your purpose. Jeremiah 29:11 reminds us that God knows the thoughts He has toward us. Your purpose may be taking shape in the very season you wanted to escape. The experiences you are going through may be developing compassion, wisdom, courage, discipline, and endurance that your future assignment will require. Do not waste your waiting by constantly asking when it will end. Ask instead, what is God developing in me while I am here? That question can transform your entire perspective. And finally, never forget this powerful truth. Do not abandon the process before the promise is ready. Galatians 6-9 tells us not to become weary in doing good, because we will reap in due season if we do not faint. The harvest has a season. Your responsibility is not to force it. Your responsibility is to remain faithful. Do not quit because you are tired. Do not quit because someone else received their breakthrough first. Do not quit because the process has taken longer than you expected. Do not make a permanent decision based on temporary frustration. When you need to rest, seek wisdom when you need direction. Adjust when God redirects you. But do not abandon what God has genuinely called you to do simply because you cannot see the result yet. Your waiting season has an expiration date, but your character will travel with you into every future season. So let God build you while you wait. Let Him strengthen your faith. Let Him deepen your roots. Let Him remove what cannot travel into your future. Let Him teach you patience without making you passive, hope without making you careless, and confidence without making you proud. One day you may look back at this season and realize that God was answering a prayer you did not know how to pray. You wanted a destination. He was preparing a person. You wanted an open door. He was preparing the character required to walk through it. You wanted an immediate answer. He was building a deeper faith. You wanted the promise. He was preparing you to carry it. So do not fear the waiting. Do not curse the silence. Do not despise the process. God is not finished. If you are still waiting, keep trusting. If you are still preparing, keep preparing. If you are still praying, keep praying. If you are still walking through uncertainty, keep walking with God. Your inability to see the plan does not cancel the plan. Your delay does not cancel your purpose. Your present struggle does not determine your final destination. And when you feel like giving up, the seed does not see the tree, but the tree is already inside the seed. What God has placed within your life may be developing long before it becomes visible. Thank you for staying with this message until the end. Thank you for giving these moments to God and allowing these words to speak into your waiting season. I pray that you do not leave this message with merely temporary encouragement, but with a stronger faith and a renewed determination to keep walking. May God give you strength when the process feels long, peace when the answers are delayed, wisdom when the direction is unclear, and courage when fear tells you to stop. And when you cannot understand what God is doing, remember who God is. He is faithful. He is wise. He is present. He is working. And He is not finished with your story. Walk forward with faith. Wait with patience. Prepare with purpose. Pray with confidence. And above everything else, do not abandon the process before the promise is ready. Your waiting is not wasted. Your silence is not empty. Your preparation is not meaningless. God is working even now. Amen.